Captain Sarah Chen stared at the empty space where New Geneva should have been. Her hands gripped the command chair on the bridge of the scout ship Hermes. The silence felt wrong. Very wrong. "Are we in the right place?" she asked her navigator. "Yes, Captain. These are the exact coordinates for New Geneva Colony." 3 days ago, the colony had stopped answering calls from Earth. New Geneva was home to 2.5 million people. It was humanity's biggest success story outside of Earth itself. The planet had green fields, clean cities, and schools full of happy children. Now there was nothing but rocks floating in space. Lieutenant Marcus Webb walked up to Chen's chair. His face was pale. "Captain, we're picking up debris, lots of it." Chen felt her stomach drop. "What kind of debris?" "Metal fragments. Some look like they came from buildings, others from ships." Webb paused. "And there are organic traces." The word organic hit Chen like a punch. Organic meant people. It meant the colonists who had called New Geneva home. "Take us closer," Chen ordered. "But keep the shields up." The Hermes moved slowly through the debris field. What they found made Chen's crew sick. Pieces of homes floated past their windows. A child's toy spaceship drifted by, half melted. The remains of a school bus hung in the darkness like a broken promise. "Captain," called out the communications officer, "I'm getting something, a signal from an emergency beacon. Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with static, then a voice. It was scratchy and full of fear. "This is Mayor Johnson of New Geneva. We are under attack. Ships are coming down from orbit. They're not responding to our calls. They're just shooting. Everything. The downtown is gone. The hospital is gone. They're killing everyone. Dear God, they're killing the children." The recording cut to static. Then another voice came through. "This is Colonel Martinez at the defense station. The attack fleet is massive. I count at least 50 capital ships. They have technology we've never seen. Our weapons can't even scratch their shields. They're not taking prisoners. They're not asking for surrender. They're just wiping us out." More static. Then a final message. "This is Dr. Susan Park at the Research Center. I'm uploading all our data to this beacon before they find us. The attackers are from the Hegemony Coalition. 6 alien species working together. They sent a message saying humans spread too fast and take too much space. They said we're a threat that must be removed. They said this is a lesson for all humanity. They said—" The message ended in the sound of explosions and screaming. Chen closed her eyes. When she opened them, she saw tears on the faces of her crew. "Sir," Webb said quietly. "What do we do?" Chen looked at the floating remains of what had been a thriving human world. She thought about the families who had lived here, the children who had played in the parks, the farmers who had grown, food to feed other colonies, all gone. "We collect evidence," she said, "every piece, every recording, every fragment, and then we take it home." The next 6 hours were the hardest of Chen's life. Her crew worked in shifts because no one could handle looking at the debris for too long. They found pieces of the colony's main library. Burned pages from children's books floated in the vacuum. They found parts of the medical center, still with patient records intact. They found the remains of the colony ship that had brought the first settlers 20 years ago. It had been turned into a monument in the town square. Now it was just twisted metal. The worst discovery came from Ensign Lisa Park, Dr. Susan Park's daughter who had joined the crew to look for her mother. "Captain," Lisa called out, her voice breaking, "I found something." On the main screen appeared a piece of plastic, half melted but still recognizable. It was a child's drawing, stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. At the bottom, in crayon, were the words, "My family," and a name, Tommy Wilson, age 6. Lisa Park started crying. Soon half the bridge crew was crying with her. Chen knew they had found enough. More than enough. "Set course for Earth," she ordered. "Maximum speed." The trip back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, Chen's crew organized all the evidence they had collected. Video recordings from security cameras showed the attack in horrible detail. The alien ships had appeared without warning. They had ignored all attempts at communication. They had simply started destroying everything human on the planet. The attackers had been thorough. They had bombed every city, every farm, every road. They had destroyed the spaceport so no one could escape. They had even bombed the cemeteries, as if they wanted to erase every trace that humans had ever been there. When the Hermes reached Earth, Chen sent her report ahead. By the time they docked at Luna Station, every major news network was asking for interviews. Chen refused them all. She went straight to Earth, straight to the Colonial Defense Headquarters. She walked into a room full of generals and politicians. Without saying a word, she placed a small piece of plastic on the conference table. It was Tommy Wilson's drawing. 2.5 million people, she said. Gone, just because some aliens think we're growing too fast. General Morrison, the head of Colonial Defense, picked up the drawing. Tell us everything, Captain. Chen did. She told them about the debris fields, about the recordings, about the Hegemony Coalition's message claiming responsibility, about the children's toys floating in space where playgrounds used to be. When she finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Finally, President Santos spoke. Captain Chen, you and your crew have done humanity a great service. Now we know what we're dealing with. What are we going to do? Chen asked. Santos stood up and looked out the window at Earth below. We're going to make sure this never happens again. How? Santos turned back to the room. Her eyes were hard as steel. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you murder human children. Chen left the meeting feeling strange. She had expected anger. She had expected demands for immediate revenge. Instead, she got quiet determination that somehow felt much more frightening. That night, she watched the news reports. Tommy Wilson's drawing was on every screen on Earth. His parents were dead, but somehow his simple crayon picture had become the symbol of human loss. The news anchors spoke about New Geneva's libraries and schools and hospitals. They showed pictures of families who would never come home. But Chen noticed something else in the reports. Shipyards that had been building colony vessels were suddenly hiring more workers. Mining operations in the asteroid belt were expanding. Universities were offering new courses in military engineering. Earth was not just mourning, Earth was preparing. Chen thought about the Hegemony Coalition's message. They had called the destruction of New Geneva a lesson for humanity. They wanted to teach humans to stay in their small corner of space and not spread out among the stars. Looking at Tommy Wilson's drawing one more time, Chen realized the aliens had taught humanity a lesson, just not the one they intended. They had taught humanity what it looked like when someone tried to wipe them out, and humanity was a very good student. President Maria Santos stood at the podium in the United Earth Assembly. Behind her, Tommy Wilson's drawing filled a massive screen. The 6-year-old's stick figures seemed to watch over the representatives from every human world. Santos had been president for 3 years. She had always believed in peaceful solutions. She had spent her time building schools and hospitals on the colony worlds. Now she faced the biggest decision in human history. Members of the Assembly, she began. 3 weeks ago, the Hegemony Coalition murdered 2.5 million of our people. They did this without warning. They did this without mercy. They did this to teach us a lesson. The assembly hall was silent. Every representative knew what had happened at New Geneva. They had all seen the videos. They had all heard the recordings of people dying. The coalition has sent us a message, Santos continued. They say humans expand too quickly. They say we take up too much space in the galaxy. They say New Geneva was a warning to make us stop. Santos paused and looked around the room. She saw anger on many faces. She saw tears on others. She saw determination on all of them. Today we send them our answer. We will remember them all. That was it. Santos stepped down from the podium and left the hall. No declaration of war. No angry speeches. No threats of revenge. Just 5 simple words. We will remember them all. The Hegemony Coalition had expected something different. Their intelligence networks had monitored human communications for weeks. They expected demands for reparations. They expected angry messages. They expected humans to do what most species did after an attack: negotiate. Instead, Earth went quiet. Admiral Marcus Webb sat in his office deep under the Colorado mountains. The hidden facility had been built 50 years ago just in case humanity ever faced an enemy too strong for normal military forces. Today, Webb activated Protocol 7 for the first time. Protocol 7 was simple in concept, but massive in scale. Every human world would contribute to building the largest military force in galactic history. Every shipyard would be converted. Every factory would be retooled. Every resource would be focused on one goal: making sure New Geneva never happened again. Webb's first call went to Director Elizabeth Voss at the Titan yards near Saturn. Titan was humanity's biggest shipbuilding facility. For 20 years, it had built colony ships to carry families to new worlds. "Elizabeth," Webb said, "we need to talk." An hour later, Voss was looking at classified plans she had never seen before. Hidden in the Titan facility were blueprints for warships. Not just any warships, but dreadnoughts larger than anything humans had ever built. "How long have these plans existed?" she asked. "Since we first met another species," Webb replied. "We hoped we'd never need them." Voss studied the designs. Each dreadnought was 3 kilometers long. Each one carried enough firepower to level a continent. Each one was designed to be built quickly using automated systems. "How many do you want?" she asked. Webb looked at the data from New Geneva. He thought about the 50 ships that had destroyed a world full of children. He thought about the 6 species in the Hegemony Coalition. He thought about making sure they could never do this again. "All of them," he said. "Build them all." "Sir, these plans show designs for 500,000 ships." "I know." Voss stared at him. 500,000 dreadnoughts? That's impossible." The Coalition thought genocide was impossible too. They were wrong. Within days, the transformation began. The Titan. Yards expanded overnight. New construction bays appeared faster than seemed possible. Automated factories that had been building civilian equipment switched to making weapons and armor. Dr. Jennifer Kim had been designing better farms for the colony worlds. Now she found herself in a secret laboratory under the moon, working on something called quantum foundries. These machines could take raw materials and turn them into finished spaceships in a matter of days. "I don't understand," Kim said to her new supervisor. "Yesterday, I was growing better corn. Today you want me to build war machines?" "The people who ate your corn are dead," the supervisor replied. "Now we make sure their killers can never hurt anyone else." Kim looked at the quantum foundry designs. The technology was incredible. It used controlled fusion to break down asteroid metal and rebuild it into ship hulls. It could make a dreadnought's armor plating in 6 hours. "This will work," she said, quietly. This will actually work. All across the solar system, similar conversations were happening. Mining operations in the asteroid belt tripled their output overnight. Every piece of rock was needed for the new ships. Mars began producing atmospheric systems. Europa provided water ice for reaction mass. Even the small research stations were contributing something. Captain Sarah Chen found herself in charge of training new crews. Every day, thousands of civilians volunteered for the fleet. Teachers became tactical officers. Engineers became weapons specialists. Farmers learned to operate fusion reactors. "I used to run a bakery," said Maria Gonzalez, now a gunner on the dreadnought New Geneva's Wrath. "I made wedding cakes. Now I'm learning to fire plasma cannons." "Why?" Chen asked. Gonzalez showed her a picture on her tablet. It was from her bakery's website, a birthday cake shaped like a spaceship, made for a little boy's party. This was for Tommy Wilson's 6th birthday. I was supposed to make his 7th birthday cake, too. Chen understood. All across the fleet, people had similar stories. The war had become personal for every human alive. The Hegemony Coalition's intelligence services noticed the increased activity in human space. Their reports estimated that Earth might build 50 new warships within a year, maybe 100 if they really pushed their industrial capacity. The humans are responding as expected, reported Intelligence Director Keth Val to the Coalition Council. They are angry and building some ships, but their industrial base is limited. They cannot threaten our superiority. The Coalition Council was satisfied. They had crushed human expansion and proven their dominance. Soon, Earth would accept their place in the galactic order. They had no idea what was really happening in human space. Dr. Elizabeth Voss stood on an observation deck overlooking the Titan yards. 6 months ago, this had been a facility building, colony ships. Now it stretched beyond the horizon, filled with construction bays building instruments of war. She counted the ships under construction. In this facility alone, there were 10,000 dreadnoughts taking shape. And Titan was just one of dozens of similar yards throughout human space. "How many are we up to?" asked Admiral Webb, joining her at the observation window. 480,000 completed, 20,000 more finishing this week. Webb nodded. "Good. The Coalition thinks we might have 50 ships by now." Voss watched robotic systems install weapons on a newly finished dreadnought. Each ship was being named after someone who died at New Geneva. The big command ships had names like Maria Santos and Dr. Susan Park. The smaller ones had names like Tommy Wilson and Jenny Martinez, age 4. "Do you think this will work?" Voss asked. Webb thought about the children's drawings found floating in space. He thought about families who would never be reunited. He thought about the species that had decided humans needed to be taught a lesson. "It's going to work," he said, "because it has to." Far away on the Coalition homeworlds, life continued as normal. They had taught the upstart humans their place in the galaxy. Now they could return to more important matters. They never noticed. The gravitational anomalies starting to appear at the edge of human space. They dismissed the energy readings as cosmic background radiation. They ignored their deep space sensors that kept malfunctioning whenever they pointed toward Earth. Humanity had learned their lesson, all right. They had learned that the galaxy was a dangerous place filled with species willing to commit genocide. They had learned that peaceful expansion was not enough to protect their children. Most importantly, they had learned that sometimes the only way to prevent future wars was to become so overwhelmingly powerful that no one would ever dare attack. "You again?" The lesson was almost complete. Soon it would be time for the final exam. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the Retribution and looked out at the impossible sight before him. 500,000 dreadnoughts hung in perfect formation, stretching as far as his eyes could see. The fleet was so large that ships on the far edge appeared as tiny dots of light. 6 months. That's how long it had taken humanity to build the largest military force in galactic history. 6 months since New Geneva had been turned to floating debris and children's toys. "Fleet status report," Webb ordered. Captain Lisa Park, now his chief of staff, consulted her tablet. 500,000 dreadnoughts ready for combat, all ships fully crewed and supplied, all weapon systems operational. All crews have completed training. Webb nodded. The numbers still seemed impossible, even to him. 500,000 ships, each one 3 kilometers long and packed with enough firepower to level a continent. The combined mass of the fleet was larger than most moons. "How did we do it?" asked Captain Yuki Tanaka, commander of the New Geneva's Wrath. "Quantum foundries," replied Dr. Elizabeth Voss, who had joined them on the bridge. "We built machines that could build machines. Then those machines built ships faster than anyone thought possible." Webb walked to the tactical display. It showed the entire fleet in formation. Each ship was marked with a name from New Geneva. The largest dreadnoughts carried the names of community leaders and heroes. The smaller ones bore the names of children and families. Tommy Wilson, Webb read from one of the ship names, age 6, liked to draw pictures of his family. Maria. Santos, read another officer. Not the president. A teacher at New Geneva Elementary School. Dr. James Park, read Captain Park, her voice quiet. My father. He ran the medical center. Every ship in the fleet had a story like that. Every name represented someone who had died when the Hegemony Coalition decided to teach humanity a lesson. The crews took their ship name seriously. This wasn't just a military operation. It was a memorial that could fight back. Admiral, called the communications officer. We're getting a message from Earth. President Santos wants to speak with you. Santos appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Webb could see Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. It looked so peaceful and small compared to the massive fleet surrounding them. Admiral Webb, Santos said. Is the fleet ready? Yes, Madam President. 500,000 ships, 25 million crew members, all volunteers. Santos was quiet for a moment. 25 million people volunteered to crew these ships. More than that asked to join. We had to turn people away. Every human in the solar system wanted to be part of this. Webb understood why. The attack on New Geneva had hurt every human alive. Parents looked at their own children and imagined them crying for help as bombs fell from the sky. Teachers thought about lesson plans that would never be taught. Doctors remembered patients they would never be able to save. The coalition still doesn't know we're coming, Santos said. Their intelligence networks think we have maybe 100 ships. How is that possible? Asked Captain Tanaka. We've been very careful, Webb replied. All construction happened in hidden facilities. All communications were encrypted. All fleet movements were disguised as civilian traffic. Dr. Voss pulled up a holographic display. The quantum foundries were built inside asteroids. From the outside, they looked like normal mining operations. The ships were assembled in pieces and put together in deep space. Webb thought about the incredible effort it had taken. Millions of humans working around the clock for 6 months. Factory workers who hadn't seen their families in weeks. Engineers who solved impossible problems through sheer determination. Ordinary people who had become extraordinary because someone had murdered their neighbors. What about the crews? Santos asked. Captain Park answered. Every major profession is represented. We have teachers running communication systems, farmers operating life support, artists designing tactical displays. Everyone wanted to contribute. And they're all ready for combat? More than ready, Webb said. They're motivated in a way I've never seen before. Every crew member has seen the videos from New Geneva. Every crew member knows what we're fighting for. Webb pulled up personnel files on his tablet. Maria Gonzalez used to run a bakery. Now she's the best gunner in the fleet. She practices 12 hours a day because she was supposed to make Tommy Wilson's 7th birthday cake. Dr. Jennifer Kim was an agricultural scientist. Now she runs the reactor systems on the Dr. Susan Park. She says she's growing energy instead of corn. Captain Sarah Chen was a scout ship commander. Now she leads an entire battle group. She's named every ship in her command after families from New Geneva. Santos listened to each story. Webb could see tears in her eyes, but also something else. Pride, determination, the same quiet fury that had driven humanity to build this fleet. Admiral, Santos said, the coalition sent us a message after New Geneva. They said they were teaching us a lesson about expanding too quickly. They said we needed to learn our place in the galaxy. Yes, ma'am. I have a message for you to deliver to them. Tell them we learned our lesson. Tell them we learned it very well. The transmission ended, leaving Webb alone with his fleet and his thoughts. He walked to another display that showed the technical specifications of their dreadnoughts. Each ship represented the best of human technology, adapted for war. The main guns were plasma cannons based on fusion reactor designs. The same technology that had powered peaceful colonies now delivered destruction at the speed of light. The point defense systems were upgraded mining lasers that had once cut asteroids into useful shapes. Now they cut attacking missiles into harmless debris. The shields used gravitational manipulation technology originally designed for terraforming. The same systems that had shaped New Geneva's continents now protected human ships from enemy fire. The artificial intelligence systems had been designed to manage colonial ecosystems. Now they calculated firing solutions and battle tactics. "We turned our tools of creation into weapons of war," said Dr. Voss, reading his thoughts. "The Coalition forced us to," Webb replied. "They could have left us alone. They could have talked to us. Instead, they chose genocide." Webb thought about the moral implications of what they were about to do. 500,000 Dreadnoughts was enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. They could wipe out the Coalition homeworlds just as easily as the Coalition had wiped out New Geneva, but that wasn't the plan. Humanity had learned something the Coalition hadn't expected. They had learned that becoming monsters to fight monsters was not the answer. They had learned that overwhelming force could be used to prevent war, not just to win it. "Fleet commanders, report to the bridge," Webb announced. Within minutes, the bridge was filled with captains and admirals. Some were former military officers. Others were civilians who had learned command skills in the past 6 months. All of them were united by the same purpose. "Ladies and gentlemen," Webb began, "in 6 hours we jump to the HFY system. That's the Coalition's main fortress world. They have a fleet of about 2,000 ships there." He paused and looked around the room. "We are going to arrive with 500,000 ships. They will be outnumbered 250 to 1. "Will they surrender?" asked Captain Chen. "Maybe, maybe not. But either way, we're going to make sure the galaxy understands something very important. Humanity builds more than just colonies and farms. When someone hurts our children, we build fleets that can darken the stars." Webb activated the tactical display one more time. It showed their destination, HFY, the seat of Coalition power. The system had been chosen because it represented everything the Coalition stood for: military strength, established order, the belief that older species had the right to control younger ones. "Remember," Webb told his commanders, "we're not going there to become like them. We're going there to make sure no one ever becomes like them again." The fleet began final preparations for the jump to hyperspace. 500,000 ships moving, with perfect coordination. 25 million humans united by grief and determination. The largest military force ever assembled, built by a species that had preferred to grow corn and teach children to read. As the jump countdown began, Webb thought about Tommy Wilson's drawing one more time, a little boy's picture of his family, holding hands under a sunny sky. It had become the symbol of everything humanity was fighting for. Soon, the galaxy would learn what happened when someone tried to erase pictures like that. Soon, the Coalition would understand that humanity had indeed learned their lesson. The lesson was simple: never again. Admiral Zeth Kara of the Coalition Navy was drinking his morning tea when his tactical officer burst into his quarters without permission. In 40 years of military service, Zeth Kara had never seen such breach of protocol. "Admiral," the officer gasped, "you need to see this, right now." Zeth Kara followed him to the command center of Fortress HFY, the Coalition's most powerful military installation. The massive space station orbited the Coalition's capital world and commanded a fleet of 2,000 ships. It was considered invincible. "Report," Zeth Kara ordered as he reached the tactical displays. "Sir, we have contacts emerging from hyperspace, at the edge of the system. Many contacts." Zeth Kara looked at the sensor readings and frowned. "How many is many?" "Computer is still counting, sir. Current estimate is 498,000 individual vessels." Zeth Kara stared at the number. "That's impossible. Check your sensors." "Already done, sir. 3 times. The readings are accurate." "Show me." The main display lit up with a view of space, near the system's edge. What Zethkara saw made his blood freeze. Ships appeared out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands upon thousands. The emergence points created a wall of light that stretched across. The darkness. Computer, classify vessel types. All contacts read as capital ship mass, the computer announced in its calm voice. Classification, Dreadnought class or larger. Total count, 500,000 vessels. Zethkara sat down heavily in his command chair. In his 40 years of service, he had seen many fleets. The largest coalition fleet ever assembled had contained 3,000 ships. This was 50 times larger. Who are they? He asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, the communications array lit up with an incoming transmission. The face that appeared on screen was human. Admiral Marcus Webb of Earth looked directly at Zethkara, with eyes like cold steel. Admiral. Zethkara, Webb said. I am Admiral Marcus Webb of the Terran Defense Fleet. You probably don't remember New Geneva Colony. 6 months ago, your forces murdered 2.5 million humans there, including children. Zethkara did remember. New Geneva had been a simple operation. 1 fleet, 50 ships, a quick demonstration of coalition power. It was supposed to teach humanity to stay in their corner of space. You wish to demonstrate the consequences of humanity's expansion, Webb continued. We are here to demonstrate the consequences of humanity's grief. The transmission ended, leaving Zethkara staring at a blank screen. Around him, his staff looked terrified. They all understood the numbers. 500,000 human ships against 2,000 coalition vessels. Send a message to Coalition Command, Zethkara ordered. Tell them we need immediate reinforcement. Sir, his communications officer replied, Coalition Command is asking if our sensors are malfunctioning. They don't believe the numbers. Zethkara almost laughed. He didn't believe the numbers either. But there they were on every display. 500,000 enemy ships moving toward them with terrible purpose. Open a channel to the human fleet, he ordered. Webb's face reappeared on screen. Behind him, Zethkara could see other humans working at control stations. They looked calm, professional. Ready. Admiral Webb, Zethkara began. Perhaps we can discuss this situation. The Coalition is prepared to offer reparations for the New Geneva incident. Incident? Webb's voice was soft, but there was something dangerous in it. You call the murder of 2.5 million people an incident? It was a military action designed to prevent future conflict. Webb was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his words were measured and careful. Admiral, let me explain something to you. 6 months ago, humanity learned that the galaxy contains species willing to commit genocide to solve political problems. Today, we are here to solve that problem. By committing genocide yourselves? No. By making sure it never happens again. Zethkara watched his tactical displays as the human fleet continued its approach. 500,000 ships moving in perfect formation. The organization required for such a fleet was staggering. The industrial capacity needed to build it was beyond imagination. How? He asked. How did you build so many ships so quickly? We learned from you, Webb replied. You taught us that the galaxy is not a safe place for peaceful species. You taught us that sometimes terrible things happen to good people. You taught us that we needed to be stronger. This is madness. No species can maintain a fleet this size. You're right, Webb said. We can't maintain it. That's why we're going to use it to create a galaxy where we don't need it. The human fleet reached weapons range. Zethkara's sensors showed energy, readings that made no sense. Each human ship was outputting power levels equal to a coalition battleship. Their smallest vessels were as strong as his heavy cruisers. All ships, Zethkara broadcast to his fleet. Prepare for combat. Admiral, Webb said from the screen. Look at your odds. 2,000 ships against 500,000. You can't win this fight. We are Coalition Navy. We do not surrender. Webb nodded. I understand. Duty above all else. I respect that. But consider this. How many of your crews have families? How many have children? Zethkara thought about his own family. His daughter was studying music at the Capital University. His son was learning to pilot civilian transport ships. They didn't deserve to die because of military decisions. What are you proposing? He asked. Surrender your fleet. All ships, all personnel. You will be treated according to military law. No one will be harmed. Your crews will be allowed to contact their families. And if we fight? Webb's expression didn't change. Then we will destroy your fleet, all of it, because we cannot allow the species that murdered children to maintain the power to do it again. Zethkara looked around his command center. His officers were watching the tactical displays with growing fear. The human fleet had spread out across the system. Every coalition ship was surrounded by hundreds of human vessels. How do we know you won't kill us anyway? Because, Webb said, we are not you. We don't murder civilians. We don't target children. We don't commit genocide to solve political problems. We are here to stop those things from happening. Zethkara made the hardest decision of his military career. All coalition ships. This is Admiral Zethkara. Stand down, weapons. Prepare to surrender. Sir, his tactical officer asked. Are you sure? Zethkara looked at the display showing 500,000 human ships. Each one represented humanity's response to the murder of their children. Each one was a promise that such murders would not be tolerated. Yes, he said. I'm sure. The surrender took 3 hours. Coalition ships powered down their weapons and shields one by one. Human vessels moved in to escort them to secure positions. Throughout the process, the humans were professional and respectful. They provided medical aid to injured coalition personnel. They allowed communication with families. They treated prisoners according to military law. Admiral Webb came aboard Fortress Kethvar in person. He walked through the corridors with a small escort, looking at the coalition's most powerful installation. When he reached the command center, he studied the tactical displays that had tracked the battle. Impressive facility, he told Zethkara. Very advanced technology. Not advanced enough, apparently. Webb looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. Admiral, you fought an honorable campaign. You followed orders. You protected your people. I respect that. Then why destroy our fleet? We're not destroying it. We're incorporating it into a new galactic defense force, one designed to prevent future genocides. Zethkara stared at him. You're going to use our ships? With willing crews, yes. The galaxy needs protection from species that think genocide is an acceptable political tool. Who better to provide that protection than those who have seen what happens when we fail? As Webb spoke, reports came in from across the galaxy. The Coalition's other fleets were surrendering without a fight. The news of Kethvar's defeat had spread quickly. No one wanted to face 500,000 human dreadnoughts. What happens now? Zethkara asked. Webb walked to the main display and looked out at the human fleet. 500,000 ships representing humanity's transformation from peaceful farmers to galactic peacekeepers. Now, he said, we build a better galaxy, one where children can draw pictures of their families without worrying that someone will decide they don't deserve to exist. Zethkara thought about his own grandchildren, about Tommy Wilson's drawing floating in space, about the choices that had led to this moment. Will it work? He asked. Webb looked at the massive fleet surrounding them. 500,000 ships, crewed by teachers and farmers and bakers who had become warriors to protect their children. It has to, he said, because the alternative is unacceptable. 3 days after the Battle of Kethvar, President Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the New Geneva Memorial, looking out at the defeated coalition fleet. 2,000 ships hung in space, their crews waiting to learn their fate. Around them, humanity's 500,000 dreadnoughts maintained perfect formation. The galaxy had watched in stunned silence as news of the surrender spread. Species that had considered the coalition invincible now saw their fleets captured by humans who had appeared from nowhere with impossible numbers. "Madam President," Admiral Webb said, joining her at the observation window, "the Coalition Council has agreed to meet. They're sending representatives to discuss terms." Santos nodded. She had been preparing for this moment since the day New Geneva died. The choices made here would determine whether the galaxy learned from its mistakes or repeated them. "Have they agreed to our conditions?" "All of them. Complete surrender of all military forces, reparations for New Geneva, and most importantly, acceptance of the new Galactic Peacekeeping Charter." Santos thought about that charter. It was a simple document, really. No species would be allowed to commit genocide. No government could order the destruction of civilian populations. Any military force that targeted children would face the full might of humanity's fleet. They agreed to that? They don't have much choice. Half the galaxy saw what happened at Kethvar. Nobody wants to face our fleet in battle. The coalition representatives arrived in a small diplomatic vessel. Santos met them in the conference room of the New Geneva Memorial. The room's walls were covered with pictures from the destroyed colony, families smiling at the camera, children playing in parks, teachers with their students, all dead now, but not forgotten. The coalition delegation was led by Elder Vashitar, the senior member of their ruling council. He was an old being, representing a species that had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years. Today, he looked small and defeated. "President Santos," he began, "the Coalition Council recognizes the impressive nature of your military response. We are prepared to discuss reasonable terms for peace." Santos gestured to the pictures on the walls. "Do you see these people, Elder Vashitar?" Yes. They were teachers and farmers and doctors. They were children learning to read. They were families who moved to New Geneva to build better lives. "Your forces murdered them all." Vashitar shifted uncomfortably. "The action at New Geneva was regrettable, but it was necessary to maintain galactic stability." "Stability?" Santos kept her voice calm, but Admiral Webb could see the fury in her eyes. "You call genocide stability?" Humanity was expanding too, rapidly. You were taking resources that belonged to older, more established species. Santos pulled up a holographic display showing New Geneva before the attack. Green fields stretched to the horizon, cities full of parks and schools, spaceports, where children watched ships coming and going. What resources? New Geneva was a farming world. They grew food and built schools. They weren't threatening anyone. Your expansion pattern indicated future conflicts. So you decided to murder children to prevent theoretical future problems. The room fell silent. Elder Vashitar looked at the pictures on the walls, seeing for the first time the faces of the people his government had ordered killed. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. Santos activated another display. This one showed the peace terms humanity had prepared. They were surprisingly reasonable for a species that had just demonstrated overwhelming military superiority. First, complete demilitarization of all coalition forces. Your ships will be incorporated into a new galactic peacekeeping fleet under human command. "Impossible. We cannot surrender our sovereignty." "You already did," Admiral Webb said. 3 days ago when you surrendered your fleets without a fight. "Second," Santos continued, "reparations for New Geneva. You will provide the resources and labor to rebuild the colony. Every building, every farm, every school. And third," Santos looked directly at Vashitar, "you will accept the establishment of a new galactic government, one designed to prevent future genocides, one that protects the rights of all species, not just the old and powerful." Elder Vashitar studied the terms carefully. They were harsh but not vindictive. Humanity could have demanded the destruction of the coalition homeworlds. Instead, they were offering a chance at redemption. "And if we refuse?" Santos gestured toward the observation window, where the human fleet stretched beyond the horizon. Then you will discover what happens when a species that builds 500,000 dreadnoughts in 6 months decides that negotiation is no longer an option. The negotiations continued for 2 days. The coalition tried to bargain for better terms, but they had no leverage. Every species in the galaxy had seen the footage from Kethvar. 500,000 human ships appearing out of nowhere, accepting the surrender of the coalition's most powerful fleet without losing a single vessel. In the end, the coalition signed everything. Complete surrender, reparations for New Geneva, acceptance of human military dominance. Most importantly, they agreed to the new Galactic Charter that made genocide a crime punishable by the full force of humanity's fleet. Admiral Webb found President Santos in her quarters after the signing ceremony. She was looking at a tablet showing reports from across human space. The massive war fleet was already beginning to transform into a peacekeeping force. "How are our people handling the transition?" he asked. "Better than expected. Most of the crews want to stay. They understand that someone needs to keep the peace." Webb looked at the reports. Former teachers were learning to be ship captains. Ex-farmers were becoming fleet administrators. Bakers and mechanics and artists were turning into the guardians of galactic civilization. "Maria Gonzalez sent a message," Santos said. "She's staying on as gunner for the New Geneva's Wrath. She says Tommy Wilson deserves a ship that will protect other children." "What about the others?" "Dr. Jennifer Kim is designing better life support systems for the peacekeeping stations. Captain Sarah Chen is setting up training programs for coalition personnel who want to join the fleet. They're all finding ways to contribute." Webb thought about the incredible transformation he had witnessed. 6 months ago, these people had been living peaceful lives on distant colonies. Today, they were the most powerful military force in galactic history. "Do you think we did the right thing?" he asked. Santos showed him another report. This one was from the New Geneva Reconstruction Project. Coalition work crews were already breaking ground for new cities. Schools were being built. Farms were being planted. Children from other human colonies were volunteering to help design the new playgrounds. "Ask me in 10 years, she said, when the New Geneva is full of children who can grow up without worrying about orbital bombardments." Years later, historians would call it the Great Transformation. The moment when the galaxy's balance of power shifted from the old empires to the young species that had learned to defend itself. They would study the Battle of Kethvar as an example of how overwhelming force could be used to create peace rather than destruction. But for the children playing in the rebuilt parks of New Geneva 2, it was simpler than that. The scary aliens who hurt people were gone. The nice humans with the big ships made sure nobody could hurt children anymore. That was all they needed to know. Above them, the stars were safe. In space stations throughout the galaxy, human crews maintained the peace. Former coalition ships served alongside human dreadnoughts, their crews learning that protecting civilians was more honorable than conquering them. The galaxy's most feared military force spent its time building schools and stopping conflicts before they started. Sometimes, when young coalition officers asked their human commanders why they had chosen mercy over revenge, the humans would show them a picture. A child's drawing of stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. At the bottom in crayon the words, "My family," and a name, Tommy Wilson, age 6. "This is why," they would say, "so that every child in the galaxy can draw pictures like this without fear." The coalition had wanted to teach humanity a lesson about expanding too quickly. They had succeeded beyond their wildest nightmares. Humanity had learned the lesson perfectly. They had learned that some things are worth fighting for. They had learned that overwhelming force can protect the innocent. They had learned that the best way to prevent genocide is to make sure those who commit it face consequences too terrible to imagine. Most importantly, they had learned that a species willing to build 500,000 dreadnoughts to protect their children will never stop protecting all children everywhere. The galaxy was a better place because someone had tried to teach humanity their place in it. Unfortunately for the Coalition, humanity's place turned out to be at the top.